friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 16th of August. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we are going to discuss the numbers that we received from the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation. They gave us not much, but first of all I would like to discuss with you this 46th Air Assault Brigade. The Russians reported that they attacked this brigade during the previous hours, but there are few battalions of that brigade is located near Nikolaev, and the Russians attacked this brigade in the area between Andreevka and Lazova on this bridgehead, and as a result of that attack, this brigade lost something around 50 soldiers. Another important update is coming from the 72nd Mechanized Brigade that located on Artyomovsk Bakhmut area on the Seversk Artyomovsk defense line. The same thing, the Russians attacked this brigade, and as a result this brigade lost up to 50 soldiers and something around 6 armored vehicles. And that's it, there are no more numbers from the Russian side. And now let's talk about the Ukrainians. The thing is that the Ukrainians changed their tactic. They understand that they can't win on the ground. Maybe they can, but they announced a few months ago about some counter-offensive operation in the south, but they haven't started this operation yet. We will discuss this operation as well in a few minutes. So the Ukrainians changed their tactic and they started guerrilla warfare. And for these purposes, I started to making another table with all sabotage operation that Ukrainians or other countries did during these days, during this military special operation. And for today, there was 3 sabotages in Ukraine, in Russian Federation, and so on. The first one, we got update from Crimea. There is an icon on the West Sources map you see that Ukrainians destroyed the power station in this area that connected the Russians were trying to connect the Zaporozhye power plant, this one in the town by the name of Energodar, with Crimea. So the Ukrainians destroyed these energy systems, and as a result there was a fire in this area, and also there was another sabotage. The Ukrainians destroyed the ammo depot, and as a result of detonation of those shells, this railroad was damaged, and during this day there were no connection. The railroad stopped on the line between Crimea and the main lane in Russian Federation. You see this railroad that moves from Russian Federation towards Crimea. Then this road crosses Jankoy town in Crimea, and after that it moves further to Kherson district or to Melitopol. So this railroad was destroyed. So this is the first sabotage operation that was done by the Ukrainians, and if we are talking about the Russians, they confirmed that this sabotage was prepared and made by the Ukrainian forces. Another sabotage operation was done in Kursk on the territory of Russian Federation. This Kursk is the big town that's located on the west, east-north from Ukraine. It's like in front of Sumy, this Sumy. And there is Kursk power plant, another nuclear power plant, this one, Kursk nuclear power plant. And the Ukrainians destroyed another energy infrastructure in this town, and the main idea was to damage this nuclear power plant. So as you can see, the Ukrainians are trying to terrorize Russians with the nuclear power plants. Another sabotage operation was made on the north in Russian Federation, in this area, in Murmansk region, in this area. Yesterday there was a report that the United Kingdom spy plane entered the territory of Russian Federation. This is the area, and this is the map of this flight. As you can see, this is the line that this plane were flying. Then this plane entered the territory of Russian Federation. The Russians moved their battle flights to this area, and with help of these flights, the United Kingdom spy airplane was forced to leave the territory of Russian Federation. So that was very interesting situation. A lot of military experts are saying that that was some kind of attempt that United Kingdom made just to understand the capabilities of Russian system on the north of Russian Federation. Very interesting. And today, the United Kingdom asked another permission to fly over this area. There is some issues with the border, with to be more precise, with this part of Russian border, and this is the reason why the Ukrainians are using this case, because as far as I understand, they have there is some issues with the border in near Murmansk. So this is the reason why they're flying around this area. And as you can see, the Ukrainians changed their tactics, and as far as I understand, these days we're going to see more and more updates. And to continue our yesterday conversation, one more thing, that this operation on the north of Russian Federation was made by United Kingdom intelligence. Some sources were saying that the operation in Janko and Crimea also was prepared with help of United Kingdom intelligence. And we are talking about the Kursk power plant. There were no updates about if there were any help of any intelligence, Western intelligence in this operation. So as you can see, the United Kingdom involved in this war very much. So it's another confirmation that maybe this is not the war between the United States of America, but it's the war between United Kingdom and Russian Federation with help of Ukrainian forces, or something like this. Now let's talk about the ground battles, ground achievements, and so on. First, let's discuss the north of near Kharkiv area. As you remember, the Russians took control over Udi, and today we got another updates that the Russians took not just Udi, but another town, Adnarobovka, this small village that located on the north of this area. I suppose that this town was in the gray zone, but there are a lot of villages. Maybe there are Ukrainians on these villages, maybe it's just some kind of gray zone because nobody controls these towns, or there are no military forces Ukrainian because it's very close to the border. But anyway, the Russians entered these two towns and now they're control. There is no more updates on the ground. There are very heavy artillery duels all along the front line, and that's it. Another important area is Izum bridgehead, the area between, let's say, Chuguyev and this border, this area ends on Slaviansk. This is a very important area, and something interesting is happening there, and we will discuss this bridgehead at the end of this video. Another important update are coming from Bakhmut, from Artyomovsk. As you know, as you see, the Russian sources map has been updated. The Russians now are showing us that they entered Bakhmut and they control the east side of this town, but today we got report that the Russians stopped their offensive operation in Bakhmut in this area because this area on the east part of Bakhmut is totally fortified, and the most dangerous thing that this east side is mined. And I have entered this information into our table in the action line. The Ukrainians mined this area with EMPF2 mines. This is the French mines, as far as I understand, and this is very dangerous mines because you are not able to spot them, to find them. Because if you are searching for mines, you're using the metal detector equipment. And this is the mines, and they're totally forbidden by the international law. It's like a crime if you're using such kind of mines, and the Ukrainians mine this area with this mine totally. And if you're using the metal detector to spot any mines, and if you're coming very close to this mine detonate because of the metal detector. This is its mechanism, how it can be activated. When something metal comes very close, this mine detonates. So this is the reason these mines it's like against the law to use this mine. So the Russians decided to stop because they understand that there might be very big casualties and loss from their side to develop their operation on this area. They managed to took some position, and they reported that now they're expecting the end of the battle for Solidar and the end of the battle for Zaitsevo, Вершина, Веселая Долина, and Opытная. They told that it's impossible to continue to develop their offensive operation without taking Opытная and without taking Solidar. So as soon as these two towns, like Opытная on the south of Bakhmut and Solidar on the north, falls, then we're going to see the developing of this offensive operation. Another important update are coming from Donetsk area. The Russians continue to develop their offensive operation, and now there is they stopped developing any offensive operation near Avdiivka. I understand that the main idea of the previous offensive operation in this area was just to stop the Ukrainians, to slow down, and to fix them in this area, not to allow them to leave these positions. And the main important, as soon as the Russians liberate or return control or captured Pesky, they're continuing developing their offensive operation in the direction of Nivolska. This is the Ukrainian artillery position. We discussed operation near Nivolska many times. I told you that this is one of the most important area because from Nivolska you are able to develop two offensive operations to Krasnogorovka, because from this area first you will be able to reduce the Ukrainian artillery position in this area, because now the Ukrainians won't, the only place the Ukrainians will be able to keep their artillery, it's very far from Donetsk, and from this area you will be able, from Nivolska, if the Russians establish their artillery position, you will be able to establish artillery control all over this sector of the front line. So it's a very important area, and now as you can see even the West source map are showing that the Russians developed their offensive operation in the direction of Nivolskaya. Another important update are coming from the south, from Mariinka, in the, we can say, sector between Mariinka, Novomikhailivka, Uglidar, Pavlovka, this Благодатная, Volodymyrovka, in this area. The Russians are saying that they managed to cut this road that connects Pobeda and Mariinka. So somehow, not somehow, we know about how the Russians established control over the south of this area, and now they have managed to cut this road. And this information was confirmed even by the Ukrainian side. So as you can see, one supply road of Uglidar fortification has been cut by the Russians. There are still a lot of ways how to support this area, but anyway, now the situation becomes critical for the Ukrainians because there might be some cauldrons in this area. Now the important update that we received from the Ukrainian military authorities, they reports that the Russians got some achievements in the area between this small town Solotka and Novomikhailivka. According to this map, you see that this town Solotka is under Ukrainian control, but if we take a look at the Russian sources map, you're going to see that this town is under Russian control and that the Russians are trying to push and to crack this net. And today we got some updates that in this area the commander of right sector, the Ukrainian National Battalion, was killed. There are a lot of commanders, but one of the commanders of this sector, of these forces, were killed. Also another commander was killed in the area of Solidar, and that was the somewhere near Solidar in this area of 30s, not Solidar, but in the area right in front of Izum Bridgehead, the officer of 13th Mechanized Brigade was killed in this area. Another important update are coming from Solidar. Just one more thing to announce that I got this update a few days ago, that Ukrainians gave an order to the forces in this area to move all officers from the front line. At least if we are talking about Solidar, Bakhmut, Artyomovsk, they're just infantry and sergeants. There is no officers in this area according to the NATO standards, what they considered an officer. And first, I thought about this update, but I didn't understand what the Ukrainians were planning to do. But as far as I understand now, I got some information. I did some analysis, and now I will give you my opinion about the situation near Izum Bridgehead, near this area. We know that there are a lot of front lines, and if we are talking about Izum Bridgehead, we can say that this is the only front line in this special operation where the Ukrainians managed to achieve some success during the previous weeks. The Ukrainians managed to return the small town Mazanovka. The Russians are saying that this town doesn't have any value for them, but anyway they lost their position in this forest. The Ukrainians are calling this forest a broken heart. The Russians are using a little bit other word. It's a rude word, so I don't want to repeat this word. But anyway, the Russians are pushed in this area, and we can say that something interesting is happening there. Now let's discuss. If you remember, of course, you know that the Ukrainians announced about some counter-offensive operation in the south, but then they announced that it was some kind of mental war, and it just was like they were saying, but they were not planning to do this. And at the time when the Ukrainians announced about this special operation, there was a lot of talks from the Russian side. A lot of military experts were saying that it might be some kind of a false flag. That Ukrainians were not planning to do any offensive in this operation. It was some kind of disinformation, but a lot of military experts, Russian, were saying that they thought that the Ukrainians were planning to start offensive operation at some other region. But they couldn't give us any information, any updates about what other place the Ukrainians might choose for their offensive operation. And today, my projection is that I understand this today, and today my projection is that Ukrainians are going to start offensive operation in direction of Izium. We can say that this Donbas Arc operation started from Izium, and the Ukrainians now want to finish this operation by attacking Izium. Why do I think so? First of all, let's take a look at the map of this position, and I've spotted today that there are a lot of changes right in front of Izium bridgehead. As you can see, according to this map, there are few groups that protects or maybe are planning to attack Izium. First of all, the 3rd Tank Brigade and 10th Tank Brigade that located near Balakleya. As you can see, last update of this brigade is dated on the 27th of July, so it's a very fresh update, less than a month. So the Ukrainians moved their main position of this brigade less than a month ago. Another important update we are receiving from this 4th Tank Brigade, and the last update is 14th of August, and this position is located right in front of the forest we used to talk about in the previous, when the Ukrainians were trying to build some pontoon bridges and to cross this river. This main base of this brigade is located near Velika, Kamushuvach, Rushuvach, and so on. Another important update are coming from the south, from this 93rd Mechanized Brigade, and as you can see, the last update is dated on the 2nd of August. Also, it's very fresh update. The Ukrainians brought this 93rd Mechanized Brigade. Another important update is from this 14th Artillery Brigade, the same date, the 2nd of August. So as you can see, by the August, the Ukrainians managed to move a lot of mechanized, a lot of very well armored brigades. 2 tanks brigade, 1 tank battalion, 1 mechanized brigade, 1 artillery brigade, and there was in Barvenkova the 3rd Tank Brigade, and this brigade is located here, we can say, for a very long time, maybe since the beginning of this special operation. So as you can see, there are 3 Tank Brigade, 1 Tank Battalion, 1 Mechanized Brigade, 1 Artillery Brigade. There are also special forces in this area. It's a very old update, by the way. And as you can see, the Ukrainians has prepared attack fist. So maybe, according to the facts, according to the numbers, according to the thing we see, and according to the result that Ukrainians managed to achieve on this Izium bridgehead, I suppose that Ukrainians maybe are going to start some offensive operation in Izium, and they will try to take control over 2 towns. Over Izium, this is the first important town, it's a very important town for the Russians, and the second thing, the Ukrainians maybe want to return control over Balakleya, because Balakleya is the town where there is still a shell depot, and this is 152 millimeters depot. And if you remember, this depot is still the biggest depot in entire Ukraine, maybe in the entire ex-Soviet republics area, depot with 152 millimeter shells. So the Ukrainians, they need the shells to be very effective with their artillery. So maybe they're planning to return control over Balakleya or at least they need to do this for one reason, just to get some fresh air and artillery shells for their operations. Furthermore, maybe this is the reason why the Russians started their if you remember, there were a lot of cases of Reko in combat. The Russians were trying to attack Gusarovka, Zaliman. First we thought that maybe the Russians want to crack and to develop, but now I suppose that maybe the Russians were doing some Reko in combat just to understand where the Ukrainians and what type of forces or army they have on this bridgehead, and maybe that was some kind of operation to prepare the Russians for big defense on Izum bridgehead in Kharkiv district. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you that we condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, and join your day. Thank you. Bye bye.